Hey guys, this is Jason. I'm reviewing Wake Up Dead Man, directed by Rian Johnson, and it is the third film in his murder mystery trilogy with Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. It's about a new priest played by Jack O'Connor who gets transferred to a small town church where he meets some people but then gets framed for a murder that he didn't do. And Benoit Blanc decides to come to this small town and investigate the murder and help this priest prove his innocence and find the real killer. And like I said, this is the third film in Rian Johnson's trilogy after movies like Knives Out and Glass Onion, which are both really good murder mystery movies. Where those films don't tie in together for one long story, they're all three separate stories where if you decide to watch one film over the other, you're never wrong to start with it. Like if you decide to watch Glass Onion first instead of Knives Out first, then you're still good to watch that one. But if you want to see how it all started with Knives Out, then you're good to start with that as well. And those films for me are some of the more fun murder mystery films in recent years. No, they're not as good as Clue, where I still think Clue is a very timeless murder mystery film and maybe my favorite murder mystery film, but I still think Knives Out and Glass Onion are really good ones. And of course, I was excited to watch Wake Up Dead Man with Daniel Craig coming back as the main character and Rian Johnson coming back to direct it. And I saw this film in the Tower Theater, so that definitely helps the experience with the film a lot. And what I love about all three of these films is that they feel different, not just with the story and the characters, but tonally as well. Where Knives Out is a murder mystery film, but is also a comedy, Glass Onion is just a full-on comedy with still having a murder mystery aspect. And this one is a dark thriller while still having some of the same humor the first two films have, and also having the murder mystery aspect. And this movie does have some pretty dark moments, and it has some deaths that are pretty brutal, especially for a movie that's PG-13. And the best way to describe it is just in one scene with two characters and a bathtub. That's all I'll say there. And Wake Up Dead Man is another great murder mystery film in this trilogy. I thought this was a really good one. It got me invested in the story and with its main leads. In particular, Josh O'Connor as this priest, or as he's called, Jed, who is trying to bury his troubled past that he doesn't like to talk about, and he thought being a priest would help him do that. But when he gets framed, things quickly go really bad, and he starts to question about his faith and how he has to try to live through it, where he is wondering if he deserves to have any faith or redemption after his troubled past. Well, he's also trying to be a good priest, and he's trying to help people, and he's also trying to prove his innocence, so you do feel some sympathy for him. And I thought Josh O'Connor did a really good job as the character. I bought him as the character who's trying to have a normal life and be a priest, and he is technically the main character of the film, even though Daniel Craig is the lead, but all three of these films do have their own main characters as well. Daniel Craig is once again fantastic as Benoit Blanc. His mannerisms are still great, his accent is still really good, even though my accent for it sounds awful. But I really do mean that he is still fun and likable as a character with his mannerisms and his ridiculous accent. And every scene he's in, he's always stealing the spotlight, just like he did with the first two films. When you hear him say ridiculous words like Scooby-Dooby-Doo, you definitely buy into his character and you believe that Craig is having a blast here. And just like in the first two films as well, he is both the comic relief and great lead in this film as well, where you can still take him seriously when he's trying to find clues and figure out what's going on and why this priest got framed. And the rest of the acting is pretty solid here. Glenn Close is great, Jeremy Renner is great, Caliee, Spaney, everyone in this film is top notch. And that's also kind of a staple with these films. All three of these films have a very stacked cast. I mean, look at the cast from the first two films. And gratefully, this movie does have a good blend of horror and comedy, which is very hard to do because when you try to add comedy into your horror film, that would often ruin the tone. But not this film. This movie has a good blend of horror and comedy, and it fits into the story. And speaking of the comedy, this movie still has a lot of funny moments. Like there's this one scene where Josh Brolin as a senior priest is talking to another character about his sins. And what kind of sins he was talking about are both gross but hilarious at the same time because of how he's saying it to the character. And another thing that's just like like the first two films is that this movie has a whole cast of unlikable characters that get you to suspect which one is really the killer, where you start to see that only characters like Blanc and Jed are the only characters that you actually get invested in and the only ones that you actually care about, because they're the only ones that are trying to take this case seriously, and they're the only ones that are trying to figure out what is going on. And what I think this movie also excels at is that this movie has a great way of showing its themes, like how character is trying to go through redemption and try to let go of his past, and seeing how some of that can kind of come back to haunt him when something horrible like this happens, where you see that he is trying to move on from that. He is trying to be a better person and be better at what he's trying to do as a priest, but he also doesn't feel like he has closure in his life, so he spends most of this film trying to find that type of closure. Now, I do have a couple of issues with this film, and one of them is that there's a good portion in the second act that did feel like it was dragging, where they would find clues that take a really long time for them to look for, or just focus on other scenes that also take a very long time to finish, and it would at times feel like it's dragging. And this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, and when you get to that second act, you can feel it, where in my opinion, I think removing just a couple of scenes that don't really matter to the story, I think would have been fine, because not only would it make the runtime feel better, but also not have a lot of scenes where it feels like the audience is feeling a little tired. And there's another thing I want to mention, and it isn't a huge problem, it doesn't ruin the film, it's just a small little nitpick I have. It's not a huge problem, it doesn't downgrade this movie, it's just a small issue that I noticed when I was watching it. So there's a scene where a character is threatening another character, and their conversation is being filmed through an iPhone, and when you see a character look at that footage from their phones, you can hear the characters through that video perfectly fine. It doesn't sound muffled or silent, you can hear their audio clearly from that video, which doesn't really make any sense to me because that would sound either muffled or just silent throughout the entire video. Again, it's not a huge issue, it's just a small little nitpick I noticed. Wake Up Dead Man is another great film in the Knives Out trilogy, or Benoit Blanc trilogy. I don't know which trilogy I should call it, because Glass Onion and Wake Up Dead Man have nothing to do with the first Knives Out film, even though Daniel Craig is in all three of them. And I would also have to think about which film I like more, Knives Out, Glass Onion, or Wake Up Dead Man, because that's going to be a little tough for me to do, because I think all three of these films are great. Even when I was rewatching both Knives Out and Glass Onion for this film, I still think they're all great. If you love the first two films, I definitely recommend seeing this one in theaters, although by the time I'm making this video, it is going to be released on Netflix this week. But I do recommend seeing it in theaters if you prefer to do that, but if you prefer to just stay at home and watch it on Netflix, then you're good to do that as well. And if they decide to make more films with Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc and have Rian Johnson direct more of them, I am going to be excited for those. Although I would still want to see Rian Johnson make another original film, because he's great at doing that with movies like Looper and Brick. But if he decides to only do films in the Knives Out franchise, I'm still going to be excited regardless. I'm going to give Wake Up Dead Man an A-. So guys, if you have seen Wake Up Dead Man either in theaters or on Netflix at home, what did you think about it? Do you think it's as good as the first two films, or do you think that this is the worst one? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm making. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.